Hi there, I'm Christy Wilhelmi from Gardenerd, and I'm sitting in front of my pretty much spent lettuce bed. I've got new lettuces on the go, but these will be coming out soon. But I got a basic request for how to harvest leafy greens, so that's what this video is all about today. Leafy greens are what I call factory vegetables. These are plants that usually send up new growth from the center of the plant, and you harvest the older leaves. These are lettuces, mustard greens, spinach, arugula, Swiss chard, kale, and collard greens. Now, some people have the idea, if you're used to buying a whole head of lettuce at the grocery store or from the farmer's market, you may think you need to grow lettuce, harvest the whole thing, and then plant more lettuce. But that's not how it works in a small space garden. What I like to do is treat the vegetable as a factory. That's why I call them factory vegetables. They keep growing from the center of the plant, and you keep harvesting those outer leaves, and you're going to get production from that vegetable at one plant for at least 3 months, maybe even more, depending on where you live. So let's take a look at how to identify those inner and outer leaves so that you can have a continuous salad garden this spring. In the case of some vegetables or even herbs that are difficult to locate that center point, it might be because if you've bought the plant at the nursery in a 4-inch pot, you may have 15 seedlings, meaning 15 centers in one plant. So let's take a look at this little guy. This is one way to find out what the center is versus the outside leaves. Look up close. So this head of lettuce is actually 2 heads of lettuce, and if you just go down to the base of the plant, you can identify the stems. You can see there's 1 and 2, and if you follow them up, you can see that this tiny growth is coming from the center. The little baby leaves are coming from the center, and these outer leaves are the bigger leaves that I want to harvest. So that is how to identify. And then when you do pick, here's how you pick. Just go down to the center, to the beginning of that leaf. Let me see if you can get this so you can see it, and just pull it off at the base like that and go all the way around. I like to harvest 3 to 4 leaves from each plant, like so. And if these older leaves are kind of yucky, just pull those off and discard them, like this. And then this is going to keep growing, and in a few days it'll be ready to harvest again. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to take this one off because it's old. New growth here, old growth here. New growth here, old growth there. That one's sort of okay. And maybe this one, like that. So now these are going to sit here for a few more days, and then they'll have new, bigger leaves for me to pick. There are several techniques out there in the gardening world for harvesting leafy greens, and you'll hear this term called cut and come again, and that's where you literally cut the head at the base, leaving some of the leaves, and then it will start to regrow from the center. And if you've done that, you know that it takes time. You have to wait a while before you can harvest that head of lettuce or whatever it is again. But with this method, you don't have to wait. You have a continuous supply, and you're going to be eating greens for a long time. At some point, the lettuce or whatever vegetable it is going to start to rise in the center, like this guy over here, and it's going to start to bolt to seed. That's what it's doing. It's rising in the center, it's going to form a flower stalk, and it's going to send out seeds, and that's the end. Because these are annual vegetables that live out their life cycle in either a few months or half a year or a year and a half in the case of chard. So that's when, at that point, you can harvest the whole thing, take off the leaves, make sure to taste them first, because as they grow taller, they get more bitter. And once they've bolted to seed, they become sort of unpalatable, and you're not going to want to eat them. So test them as you harvest, and if they're not great, then put them in the compost bin or feed them to your chickens or whatever animal likes to eat lettuce in your household. There's one thick stem here, and this is the growth that is starting to bolt to seed. So I am going to try and harvest this whole head today, where I would cut it here. But if I wanted to keep it going for a little longer, I can just take these bigger outer leaves like that. Once you've harvested your leafy greens, here's how to prepare them for storage, because freshly picked leaves of lettuce, kale, chard, spinach, etc. will last a really long time in the fridge. I'm talking like a couple of weeks if you do it right. So here's how to do it. You take these leaves and you fill a bucket with water, or if you've got a big batch, you could do, half your sink. Fill it with water, soak these for about 20 minutes, because the lettuces are, all of these cells are gonna plump up with water, and then you're gonna spin them dry. If you have a salad spinner, if you don't have a salad spinner, you can take a towel, wrap them up in a towel, grab the four corners, walk outside and whirl your arm around like a helicopter. The cylindrical force will force all the water out of it, and you'll have gotten a workout in the process. So then once these leaves are spun dry, I put them in a plastic storage bag that has some kind of absorbent material on the bottom, like a paper towel or something that, a towel that will absorb the water that continues to drain off of these. And then put it in a refrigerator drawer in your crisper, and just pull off fresh leaves whenever you're ready to make a salad every night. That's it. So now that you have a basic understanding of how these factory vegetables grow, you'll be able to harvest them to your heart's content. If you like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to find out when our next video comes online. You will, of course, find tons of information about growing your own food at gardenerd.com and in my books, Gardening for Geeks and Grow Your Own Mini Fruit Garden. And don't forget to check out my I'm covered in ants right now. And don't forget to check out my new novel that just came out in February of 2022, Garden Variety. It's set in a community garden and is a lot of fun to read this spring and summer. Happy gardening.